Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Bad start. Sometimes it happens. I can go back and re-record it, but I won't. Welcome everyone. Cannabis News with Joe Klare to December 19th, 2018. Presented as always by the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Click the video tab there to find this show. You can also find us on YouTube by searching the Marijuana Times. Today we're talking about Washington and edibles. We're also talking about a man who tried to pay for his fast food or get some fast food with some interesting currency, let us say. And marijuana law reform moving right along in New Zealand. We'll give you the latest and tell you the latest on that. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com. And their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use banned pesticides. Don't use harmful chemicals. Don't do any of those things. What you should do is go to nature-side.com. Site is spelled CIDE, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. They're awesome. Go check them out. This first story by Julia Granowitz of marijuanatimes.org. Washington approves more reasonable policy changes for edibles. You might remember, I believe we covered the story on the show back in October. The Washington Liquor and Cannabis Board announced that they would be reevaluating cannabis-infused edibles to ensure that none of the products were especially appealing to children. Initially, it appeared that gummy style and hard candies were likely to be banned under the change in policy. However, after careful review, the board determined that it might be better to simply increase restrictions on the coloration and shape of the candies themselves. Vicki Christopherson, executive director of the Washington Cannabis Business Association, said in a statement, "We applaud the Liquor and Cannabis Board for their careful reevaluation of their announcement earlier this year regarding cannabis-infused edibles. Under the new regulations, cannabis companies will be expected to avoid bright colors. They'll be allowed to work with a, quote, standard Pantone color book and naturally occurring colors." Really getting into the weeds with this one. I understand what they're trying to do. Obviously, they don't want to be appealing to children. And obviously, adults, we don't care if they're eating a marijuana-infused gummy. They don't care if it's a bright color, if it's neon, if it looks like an elephant. It doesn't matter to them. But you get going down these roads, and at least in this case, they kind of pulled back from the more extreme measure of just banning gummies and candies and things altogether, because it really doesn't seem necessary. But obviously, as I say when I write about these types of stories and I talk about them on the show, if you're worried about your kids ingesting something, as a parent, that's something you need to be worried about. That's something you need to be supervising. They don't need access to certain things. They don't need access, of course, to alcohol. They don't need access to drain cleaner. They don't need access to a lot of things. Guns, knives, prescription medications. The list goes on and on. If you have marijuana gummies, add marijuana gummies to that list. Seems, I don't know, again, seems self-explanatory or, self-explanatory. So, go do that. You parents out there, word to the wise. Speaking of wise, or the opposite of that. This next story from ABC7.com. Florida police say a man tried to pay for his McDonald's with a bag of marijuana. This is in Port St. Lucie, Florida, because all of the exciting things happen in Florida. Police in Florida say a 23-year-old man went through a McDonald's drive-thru and tried to pay for his order with a bag of marijuana. Now, unfortunately, stories like this are short on details, like all the pertinent details, all the details you want to know. Like, first of all, why? Why do you think this McDonald's would accept marijuana in exchange for their burgers or whatever? News outlets reports Port St. Lucie police say the fast food worker denied the trade because he would, McDonald's company policy does not allow them to take marijuana in payment for their food. Anthony Andrew Gallagher, the man who tried to pay with the marijuana, drove off only to return a short time later. Police arrested him Sunday on charges of marijuana possession and driving under the influence. See, there it doesn't say the influence of what. I'm thinking it's more than just marijuana. Police were alerted to Gallagher's offer early Sunday morning and they got a description of him from the worker. They say a suspect matching his description went through the drive-thru a little while later, and police approached him. It's unclear if Gallagher attempted to pay for his order with drugs a second time. It's also unclear if he has a lawyer. A lot's unclear. Like, why did he do that? I hate those stories. There's no depth to the story. It's a good story. It's funny. It asks a lot of questions, but the news people themselves, it's ABC7, they don't answer any of those questions. At least find out why he thought that this could work. Now, look, paying for things with marijuana is not new. I mean, I remember people in the 80s, dating myself a little bit, I know, paying for take a taxi cab. There were some cab drivers you could, give a couple joints as opposed to some cash. But I don't think that lackadaisical policy extends to a corporation such as McDonald's. This last story is from CNN.com. I have a big Anderson Cooper advertisement in my face, so I can't read the story. New Zealand to vote on legalizing marijuana in 2020. Obviously, we just talked recently about the legalization of medical marijuana in New Zealand. Well, now New Zealand may become the first Asia-Pacific country and only the third worldwide to legalize marijuana. A binding referendum on legalization will be held alongside the next general election in 2020. The government announced this week, so it's a little ways off. Obviously, there could be other countries that legalize before then, but it's a quickly moving issue in New Zealand. It's part of a confidence and supply agreement between the ruling Labour Party and the Greens, who welcome the binding nature of the vote. We've long advocated for a binding referendum with legislation setting out a clear, evidence-based regulatory framework. That way, we avoid a Brexit-type situation figuring out what a yes vote means after the fact and cut grey moral panic from the debate. Screen the Green Party MP Chloe Swarbrick on the Twitter. Speaking of Parliament last month, Swarbrick blasted the hypocrisy of MPs who admitted they had taken drugs in the past but did not support legalization. She said, quote, "A substantial number of us have personally admitted to breaking the law and consuming illegal drugs. Now we preside over a law which penalizes people who engage in exactly the same behavior." I will say it's a bit of hypocrisy if you used illegal drugs in the past and you support prohibition now. It's, people can change their minds, obviously. But as I've always said, marijuana should be legal, not because what other people have done or not done or what they want to do or have done or think about doing. Marijuana should be legal because the people who grow it and sell it and buy it are not infringing on the rights of anyone else. And, that's the end of that. And that's the end of the show. That's a good place to end the show on. The thing I say the most. It's like my catchphrase. It's a little long to be a catchphrase, but nevertheless, here we are. We're nearing the end of the year. We're nearing 300 episodes. I want to thank all of you, as I always do. But I really mean it. It's because of you, people watching and listening and sharing and liking and commenting on these videos, that we still do them, because we know we're reaching people and we're reaching more and more people every day. So please, if you haven't, like, share, comment, all that stuff. If you can check out Apple Podcasts, if you want the audio version of the show, search the Marijuana Times on there. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Of course, the great articles, the great writers, this show, social media links, all kinds of other stuff, marijuanatimes.org. Thank you to Nature Side, nature-side.com for being a sponsor of the show. They are awesome. Go check that out, of course. We'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.